feel like if I could rap, I would be trying to put lyrics over this new bed we got. So shout out to my man Frost Gamble for the new bed. You're watching Negro and listening to Negro Please. I am Dallas Scott. Our co-host is Hollywood Huff. Today, Huff and I know enough to know that we're men, and there are some things that we should just probably shut up about and just you need a woman's opinion on. So we have some.
We still there? Oh, okay.
Okay. I thought I was hearing the replay. But, so we know enough to know that like we're men, and sometimes when you're talking about issues that you have to have a woman's point of view. So we brought in Miss Gray to help us out today. Thank you, Miss Gray, for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
For those of you who are not familiar with Negro Please, it's our job here, our purpose that we believe our purpose here is to bring a minority point of view to subjects and challenge views of common perspective. I think we actually just want to shatter common perspective. Like I've been thinking about this a lot for the last couple of days. Like we want to shatter common perspective. There's like normally we have our what happened happens was and the worst. There's so much going on this week that I think we're just gonna just jump into some subjects here. All right? I think for a lot of minorities, a big thing that came out this week was Felicity Huffman. Mm-hmm. Her and Lori Loughlin, and a bunch of other people got arrested because they were changing their kids' SAT scores and paying to get their kids into college. And Felicity Huffman took a plea deal. She got 14 days in prison. 14 whole days. And I'm assuming she's not even going to prison, right? She's just going to stay down at the county courthouse and eat bologna sandwiches for 14 days. I don't even know. And she got a $30,000 fine. I am going to let you guys go first because I think my opinion on this is going to shock you.
All right. So here's the biggest beef I think people have with it is nobody is mad about a parent who is of financial status or not trying to do something for their kid, right? So there's the woman, Tanya McDowell, who pretty much lied about her address. And my understanding is she was actually homeless.
Right. She used her son's babysitter's address.
Right. As her home address so he could go to a better school, right?
Correct.
So this is common. I know I've grown up knowing people that did this. I had friends that went to my school that weren't supposed to go to my school.
My parents did this. My nieces and nephews, everybody I've ever known.
Yeah.
Has
This is common practice. That's not anybody's beef with this. Here's the problem. Miss McDowell, who obviously was poor, lived in a poor neighborhood, a poor area. Maybe she was completely homeless. Maybe just by definition she was homeless, didn't have a current address, so to speak. So she got 5 years. She got sentenced to 5 years simply for trying to get her child a better education, right? She broke the law, 5 years. Okay, if that's the law, fine, right? So now you have Felicity Huffman, who along with, at this point, the number keeps growing. It seems like hundreds of people who have been paying.
Did she break the law? I mean, if she doesn't have an address, where is her kid supposed to actually go to school?
Well, that's the thing is.
That's a bigger question, right?
That's a bigger question, right? You know what I mean? So,
that's a good question.
That seems like a loophole.
And see, I'm glad you didn't bring up the fact that Tanya McDowell is black, because to me, this is not a black-white issue. This is a rich-poor issue.
It's a poverty.
Right.
It's a rich-poor issue. Right. Like you said, she doesn't have an address. So how do we? I mean, if she parks her car across the street from the school to sleep in her car, like, what's her address?
Right.
Felicity Huffman, her husband is William H. Macy, who was one of the biggest actors in Hollywood.
Yep.
She has plenty of money.
Yep.
And I agree. I don't care that she did this. I really don't care. Because if I had Felicity Huffman type money.
You're saying you would do it too?
Allow my kids a better education? I would not change their SAT scores. This I would not do.
Okay.
However, if I thought giving this person over here, if I give producer Quan the 5'9" over here a little $10,000 and that's going to get my kid accepted into one of the top universities in school, I don't have a problem. This is the way that business has been done in the world since the beginning of time.
And here's the biggest really this is my only issue with it. And it's what they're doing that's taking up the seats of younger people, poorer people, who are very smart,
but here's
probably
the problem,
smarter than those kids.
There's probably no doubt, but we're assuming that these other kids would get these seats. And that's you're assuming that if she hadn't paid for her kid to get this spot in school, that
Right.
it would have gone to a minority or somebody who didn't
Even-
have means. We don't know that. So we're making an assumption that we don't know.
I don't think that. I mean, that's not my issue. It just goes. I think that seat's being taken from somebody who's going about it the wrong way.
Who didn't earn it.
Yeah, who didn't
That's
earn
my
it.
beef.
I feel like whether it's a minority or not, that seat's not for you.
I have no problem losing fair and square. If the criteria for getting into this school is having a certain GPA and getting a certain test score on this test, and you beat me, fine. I lost. I have to go somewhere else. You won the spot.
Life isn't fair and square, though. We know this.
Well, of
we
course.
see this every day in
Of course
life.
it
That, like,
isn't fair.
huh?
I get it. Yeah, of course, life isn't fair, but there's still rules and regulations that you should have to follow.
And we all know that money sets the rules and regulations.
So right. So here's the bigger beef, because since college was created, we've been told that college is the technology that you need to succeed in life. If you get a college education, you have a better chance of having a better life for yourself after college. This is pounded into kids' heads from the time they start kindergarten. It's do good in public school or grade school, basically, so that you can get a better shot at a better college. The better the college you go to, the better your life will be after the college, right? So this is a whole system that's been ingrained into young people, right? So now they have to trust this system to work. But now, because things like this, and of course, these things have been going on forever, that system cannot be trusted. The system in itself is flawed. There are people in the system that are cheating flat out. So you're telling me that, look, this college thing is basically your key to your future. But then the system at me getting the key to my future is rigged. So let alone me getting into the building that is my future, I can't get the key because there are other people who were born in a better situation. Their parents have more money, XYZ.
But that's the
I
reality
think
of
the
life,
system's
though.
flawed from.
The system's flawed.
The
for
system is-
a whole lot of the fact that
Yeah.
the fact that we're telling kids you got to go to college and take on $100,000 worth of debt to get a job that pays $40,000 a year, and you're going to be in debt. I saw a friend of mine post the other day that she took out $39,000 worth of student loans. She's been paying them for 20 years, and she's only paid back $37,000, and she still owes something like $52,000 because the amount of interest that's on the college loan. It's
Right.
just an insane number.
It's-
The system in itself is screwy from the beginning.
Guess who owns all student loans? The United States government. Do you know that student loan debt at this point right now is higher than credit card debt in this country?
Yes, it's the number one debt in the country.
And for as much as we talk about the economy, for as much as we talk about, I don't care who the president is, I don't care who is running the Congress or whatever, at the end of the day, all this student loan debt and all these degrees that are being shelled out, they are simply not equaling to the financial promise that they are supposed to, and they are being promised to people.
And the other thing that
Of
we're
course,
doing,
I mean, the promise is fucking empty.
Exactly.
it is.
Exactly.
And what we're finding out now is that because we told these kids that they had to go to college, they had to get a degree, they had to take on these debts, that the jobs that we really need in this country, we don't have anymore. We don't have kids that go and are manufacturers. We
Right.
don't have these. That's our whole. We could do a whole subject on why the American economy is going to go to hell, and it's because we can't create our own product anymore because we told these kids they had to go to college to run businesses.
Right.
But we didn't tell them that, oh, maybe you want to run your own business and do construction and build a house or build furniture for a living. So
Right.
now we have to manufacture this stuff in other places because we just don't have enough people who do this kind of work because they were sold a false dream.
Right.
We all know people who are just drowning in student loan debts. We all know people who didn't finish school and are drowning in student loan
Right.
debt.
Right.
So the system is rigged. You don't have kids yet, though, Ms. Gray, correct?
I do not.
And see, I think that once you have kids, and I'm not speaking for everybody who have kids, but you and I have had this conversation before, Hollywood, that like you will do anything you can to give your kid an advantage. You
Right.
know what I mean? You
Right.
want them to be on equal playing, especially as minority children on equal playing field.
Right.
They weren't the only people. Lori McLaughlin's her thing to me is just stupid because her daughter, and I hate talking about a kid like this, is just dumber than a box of rocks. The girl is on social media every day talking about how she didn't want to go to college to begin with,
Right.
and that she was having to go to college. That's a whole nother story because
I don't believe that she wanted her kid to go to college to necessarily get a particular education. She wants her to go there to be around a certain group of people.
But isn't that how life is? Though, like so many connections that you make with people to be successful in business come from going to college, right?
Right, but
that is probably the networking aspect of going to college is probably the best aspect of going to college.
But I think that's not what is told to kids when you tell them to go to college.
Oh, 100%. I agree
and I
with
think
you.
that's one of the biggest issues.
And there's a huge amount of status that comes with certain college names.
Right.
So when I tell people that I did go to college and I do have a degree, but I still hate college in the system. You see,
Right.
I agree, and I think that college name thing, like having a degree from Harvard, I think that is diminishing as time is going on right now. I don't think that people maybe some people in New York, but I think that people are starting to be like, just because you went to Harvard doesn't mean that you're smarter than the guy that went to UC, University of California, San Diego, or whatever. Like, I think there's this that people are realizing that. You know
there
what
are some people waking
that some
up.
of those degrees don't hold as much name weight as they used to.
I think they still hold weight in the circles where they hold weight.
Fair
you know
enough.
what I mean?
Right,
Like,
right.
To the average person, we don't care.
Right.
It doesn't mean anything to us. But to a certain group of people, that gives you a little bit more, higher up in a particular group.
Right.
So I don't know if that's going to diminish over time. I don't think it is. And I think that's why you see these people with a lot of money still trying to get their kids into a certain group. Because in their group, it holds weight.
And you also have to look at the age demographic, too. To older people, college is still this amazing thing that everybody needs to do and should do.
Right.
The younger you get to people who are
millennials aren't sold
between 30 and 40.
Not.
You get to people who are between 20 and 30, and all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. Why does going to Harvard mean this and that? Like, millennials ask questions.
Right.
Like, they ask, the biggest question millennials ask is why. And if you don't have an answer for the why, then they don't want to hear anything you have to say. And that goes for sports, that goes for education, that goes for your job. They want to know why. And nobody can tell me why a law degree from Harvard is better than a law degree from some school in Arizona, right? So for a lot of the younger people, I think that things are changing. But for like the Felicity Huffmans and her husband, William H. Macy.
Yeah, he wasn't charged though, which is weird.
Yeah.
Like all the other were charged as a couple. William H. Macy was not charged in this.
Yeah.
Lori McLaughlin and her husband, who owns the Massimino clothing line, like they were charged as a couple. All these other parents were charged as couples. They never said why not, but William H. Macy was not charged in this.
Hey, you got enough money. You cannot
there's,
be charged.
There's a couple you brought up earlier though, and there's some things. There are there's actually a few very different things with this case. I think that people they try to compare the Tanya McDowell. There's some very different circumstances here. I don't think it's a white black thing as much as it is a rich poor thing.
Right.
Rich people have money. They go out and get the absolute best attorneys they can find.
Right.
The government doesn't want to deal with those attorneys as much as those attorneys don't want to deal with the government.
So saying that, you get the best attorneys, right?
Right.
I'm pretty sure the best attorneys come from a better law school. So when there's a difference,
I disagree with. I don't think that. No, my ex is an attorney, and she's damn good at what she did, and she didn't go to Harvard.
Okay.
It's I don't think that's, and she's very well respected in law community, and when people have issues and they need consultants, they come to her. But she didn't go to Harvard. Her reputation is earned by what she's won and what she's done,
right.
And people are like, damn, I don't want to deal with her in court, and other people don't want to deal with you in court. So it's a rich thing, poor thing.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing about Miss McDowell that kind of gets lost in this is that this was a plea deal for her, right?
Right.
Part of the plea deal was that she took a suspended sentence on drug charges.
Right.
Like there's 12 years worth of drug charges here too.
Yeah, there's more to it
than just the schooling.
Yeah.
So you're comparing apples and oranges.
Right.
It's not like they found Felicity Huffman with 16 keys of coke in the back of her car and they're going to take, you know what I mean?
Right,
These are two.
right.
And Felicity Huffman's dealing with the federal government as opposed to the state government of Connecticut. These are they're not the same.
Of course not.
I think John Legend came out and he made a point this week and he was like that we should stop comparing the things. But the problem isn't that one got the X amount of time and one got this amount of time. It's that this shouldn't be a jail time thing.
Right.
Right.
Like
right.
if we're going to put people in prison, let's put them in prison for committing real crimes.
Right.
Right.
This is not really a crime. Even it's funny because, and people forget that this happened. Like right after it happened, Dr. Dre's daughter got accepted into USC, the school that all these parents were trying to get this school.
Right. Didn't he like donate
He
money
donated
for-
$500,000. And if I don't know Dr. Dre's daughter, but if you don't think that a $500,000 donation doesn't help your daughter get into USC,
and that's what I was about to hit on, because a lot of these colleges, they have, it's not just like some behind the back like scheme that people do is like, hey, look, I'm Dr. Dre, I'm about to donate 500,000. And coincidence, my daughter just applied. You know,
Right.
can y'all make it happen?
Right.
That's not how it works. It is literally outlined in their like donor policies. When if you donate this much money and your child goes to our school, they will get these extra perks that
Yes.
some of the other kids don't get.
Right.
If you donate this much money, well, they'll get free tutoring.
Is
They'll
that-
get this and this and that.
Is that a
So-
policy
And we'll
just
name
for
a building up here.
private?
It is for
Institutions?
it's for all institutions.
All institutions.
I don't want to say
Okay.
all institutions. I hate to speak in absolutes because there's difference between
Because
universities,
I can
community
understand
colleges,
that in private
XYZs.
institutions, because USC is private.
Yeah, there are
But
a lot
for-
of
well,
institutions.
we live here in Las Vegas.
yeah,
Yes.
There's a guy by the name of Tony Sanchez, who is the head football coach of the University of Nevada, Las Vegas Running Rebels football team. He came from a high school football team. Why is he the head coach of UNLV? Because the Fertittas, who are the richest family in Las Vegas, gave $700,000 to UNLV. And oh, by the way, Tony Sanchez is our son's coach over here at Bishop Gorman. You guys are looking for a head coach. We think Tony Sanchez should be the head coach. Okay, $700,000 bought Tony Sanchez's job. I don't care how they
So,
want to.
yeah,
they
yeah.
want to
And
wrap
that's-
it up.
and that's
That
the thing.
donation to the school by the rich. I believe the Fertittas have got to be the richest family in Vegas. They own 20 something casinos here, like privately owned company. Like
So here's a couple of examples, and this is kind of a standard, although it's usually in the fine print. It's
Yeah,
not
right.
something that everybody's going to know because everybody doesn't have this kind of money. University of North Carolina, school we all are well aware of, popular school. The development office promises on its major gifts page that donors of 5 million or more can find, quote, great joy in sharing special campus access and custom tailored experiences with their children and grandchildren, end quote.
That is
That's
so crazy.
Ohio State President's Club says that the benefits of joining its prestigious ranks include opportunities for engagement with university leadership. What does that mean? Your kid gets to meet the dean personally?
no,
or what?
that means when your kid gets in trouble at school, you get to go straight to the president of the school's office and be like, "What do we need to do to take care of this?"
Right.
You know, like that's you know. And I love the North Carolina one because it says your kids and grandkids, right?
Yeah.
You give us $5 million, your kids and your grandkids and probably your great grandkids are gonna, you know,
just started a legacy.
So look,
right?
You got a
right,
legacy right
yeah.
there.
At
Yeah.
UC Davis, donors of 1 million or more, quote, receive access to a personal assistant provided by the Office of Donor Relations, end quote. So let me ask you something. Do you not think an assistant helping your kid is during college is going to help you out? I mean, what would you do? First of all, if your parents got $5 million, you don't need a job. College is your full-time job at this moment.
Right.
So you don't have to worry about
You mean-
studying and going to work and the struggle that average kids have when they go to college, right?
Right.
Now, on top of that, you don't need a job. You now have an assistant. Think about this. You're a full-time college student and you got somebody helping you out. You know what? I'm hungry, but I got to finish studying. Can you run to McDonald's and grab me? You understand what
Or
I'm
better
saying?
yet, could you do this paper while I run
Could
the
you-
McDonald's?
You see what I'm saying? Like, I got to read this book. Can you just write some footnotes for me?
Right.
Like, you see what I'm saying? Like the money and these things are legal.
Yes.
100%. They are outlined as legal.
So that's why I don't really care that she did this. I don't care. Like I said, we all know somebody who's done this, maybe turned out to this extent because they didn't have the money. And honestly,
Right.
it's generally poorer people who send their kids to other school districts because you don't want them going to, let's be honest, you don't want them going to the school with the little thug kids.
Exactly.
You want them going to someplace where, no, I mean,
Hey,
we're
no,
real, right?
100%.
Yeah. Like
Hey.
you want them going somewhere where they're actually going to learn something and they're
Right.
not going to be distracted by all the bad kids in classroom. And this school, if you're in the middle of a school district, but you're 2 blocks, and this is the other thing that school districting and school zones itself are stupid, right?
It's just like voting zones.
It is. Yeah.
It's really retarded.
It's because like I live 2 blocks on the other side of 3rd Street. My kid can't go to the good school. It has to go to the bad school.
Right.
And we all know that all schools are not created equal. There are good schools and bad schools within communities.
Yes.
Correct.
100%.
So when I was in school in Minnesota, I went to high school in Minnesota. They were one of the first to start magnet schools. And when you got to high school, you were able to pick a magnet program.
Right.
The high school that I was attending had a medical magnet program. So I was one of the first kids accepted into the medical magnet programs. I thought I wanted to be a doctor when I grew up because I was told I had to go to college and learn all this.
Right.
But there were other schools that offered. There was a school that had a broadcasting magnet. There was one that had a automotive magnet and stuff like that. Problem was that just because I lived in Roosevelt School District doesn't necessarily mean that I want to be in the medical magnet program. Maybe I wanted to be in the auto magnet program at a different school. Well, the Minneapolis School District said, you know what? We can't force these kids to do these magnets that they don't want to. So we're going to allow you to register to any high school you want to in the city.
Like charter schools?
No, these are all public schools. You can go to any public high school you want to in the city. However, if you choose to go to a school outside of your district, it is your responsibility to be transported. We're not going to run a bus from the south side to the north side or from the west side to the east side for your kid to go to school. So, if you want to go, I lived on the south side. If I didn't want to go to Roosevelt and I wanted to go to Minneapolis North, I had to get to school.
Right.
I had to catch the bus. My mom had to drop me off, and that to me is a fair exchange, right? Because then you're allowing the parents and the student to take control of their own education, right? And if I go to the north side and I fail out of that program, that's on me,
right?
You know what I mean? Like, but I had the opportunity, if I was accepted into that program, to go to that program and do those things. More cities and more schools should be like that. We shouldn't have these imaginary boundary lines because, and here's the problem too, is like federal funding comes from how many minorities do you have in this school?
Yes.
Does a school that has all the minorities want to give up their funding by allowing the minorities to go to the white schools? And we're calling them what they are, right? We call them white schools, black schools, minority schools. Like do they want to give up that money? The answer is no. They don't want to give up that money. However, the white schools don't think that the minority students are as smart. They don't want to give up their test scores, which gets them money.
Right.
So there's this fine line in there where like nobody wants to concede anything. They don't want the money, and the money's coming for whether it's good or bad.
And here's the flip side of that, and here's how the kids suffer. So I had my daughter in a private school. We got her out of it right before that school closed down, and now she's in a charter school, right? So I look at the ranks of, you have public school. Charter school is a public school, but it's a little bit better because usually parents have to do a little bit of work to get their kids into a charter school, which kind of plays onto the quality of a parent who actually works to get things done for their kids versus someone who doesn't even try, right? Then you have private schools, which I think are at the top because usually those parents make a little more money. They have a higher quality of life. Usually they just at the things that they do and teach their kids at home, they're more attentive, right, to what's going on. So the kids are more well behaved. All this kind of trickles down together. So when we had my daughter in private school, the rules for the classroom were there were 10 kids to the teacher. If the class had more than 10 kids, the teacher had an assistant. The maximum number of kids in the classroom would be 20. Okay. My daughter for kindergarten and first grade, but this went all the way up to 8th grade, the school. She was never in a class with more than 17 kids. Okay. So with this, the teacher and the assistant helping these kids, her grades, my daughter was on honor roll every single quarter, every single semester. Those kids were learning. Whatever the information was and what they teach kids is a whole nother topic, but you know what I'm saying? But whatever that information was, my daughter was learning it, right? She was doing really well. When she had homework, she hardly ever needed my help. She'd sit down and do it. I'd go check it. Every once in a while, I want to be wrong. You know what I mean? And we'd be good, right? So we take her out of that school because that school was having problems, and we got her out just in time because they ended up closing like in the middle of the school year after we took her out, which would have been a real disaster for us. We got her into a charter school. There's a regular school literally less than a 5-minute walk from my house, the regular public elementary school. This school is terrible. I can tell by the parents who are sitting out front and their behavior that their kids probably ain't much better, right? So You talk about judging people, but you can tell a lot by parents and the way their kids will behave. Okay, is that fair?
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean? Okay,
fair.
black, white, and different. I don't care what color you are. You can tell a lot. So she goes to charter school. Now there's one teacher, maximum of 30 kids in the class. Guess what? I have to sit down with my daughter every single night and help her with her homework because the teacher simply does not have time to help all 30 kids with things that they don't understand.
See, like places like Minnesota has laws that I think it's 24 kids or 22 kids max per classroom.
Okay.
But that's why they have such a good education system because they have laws. Nevada is
50th. And in the 50 states, we're 50th in education. There's a reason for that. Yeah.
Right. And then because apparently we could get into a whole show on the state of Nevada
and
where they allocate money to.
It's a whole issue.
We're blessed that the teachers didn't go on strike 2 weeks ago, right? That's a whole. You're right. And class size has everything in the world to do with the attention that children can get, and not every I feel blessed because I got a pre-college education there in Minnesota,
right? Because
they had things to protect things like this, like 24 kids per classroom, which is still a lot, but it's better than 33 or 35,
right?
You know what I mean? The teachers knew who you were, like by name. You weren't just a kid that sat in the back of the classroom. Like when they had parent-teacher conferences, there was actually, first of all, my parents actually went to parent-teacher conferences, which is another thing too. That so there was actual useful information exchange. Let's stay in California.
Yeah, because we can go off on schools all day, but
California.
Go ahead.
Felicity Huffman's in California. Aaron Persky's in California.
This guy.
Like some people are like, who's Aaron Persky? I think he's better known as the rape judge, right?
Yeah.
He is the judge that allowed Brock Turner to only have to do 6 months in jail, which wasn't really even 6 months because he got time off for good behavior.
Yep.
And I think he ended up being there. I'm looking for the number now. But
he did 3 months.
3 months.
I think he did 3 months in prison and 3 months
for being convicted of
or something
rape.
Like that after being convicted of rape.
And we talked about this last week because we talked about Antonio Brown. Women. This is why women don't report rapes, because you feel like the justice system just fails you. So Aaron Persky, this is crazy. He was a Santa Clara County Superior Court judge. He's the first judge in 80 years to be recalled by the California voters because they were so outraged by this decision. So Aaron Persky doesn't have a job. Can't apparently get a job.
So clearly there was something wrong,
right,
with the sentencing of a man who raped a woman. Look,
who got caught raping a woman? It wasn't like it was allegations. Like he got caught by two other guys raping a woman.
Two other guys saw him raping a woman who was unconscious behind a dumpster. They call him out, chase him down, hold him down until the police come.
Yeah. Like this kid is 100% guilty. There's not even like a question about this. Like,
and the scene.
The recommended sentence 7 years.
Yes,
it was something like that. Yeah. The scene was so basically, it was so vile and tragic. The guys reporting it to the police basically couldn't even keep themselves together.
Right?
Like they were crying.
Do therapy.
Yeah, because they saw what this man was doing to this woman behind a dumpster.
And remember, Brock Turner's dad made the discussion, the comment that like this one moment of his life shouldn't affect the rest of his life. How unfortunately, Chanel Miller's life is completely affected for the rest of her life because of this. Not only because this happened to her, but because of what's happened to her since. The system failed her completely.
And I want to chime in real quick, too, because like you said, we all make mistakes, so you all want to be forgiven, right? But it shouldn't affect the rest of your life necessarily, but you didn't even do any of the time that it should have affected part of your life.
There should still be justice.
And then do some time and then, like, okay, now move on and live your life or whatever. But like you said with her, and was this captured on video or no?
I don't remember if
there was no surveillance.
I
don't think it was.
But the fact, like, she's totally out, right?
Right, she's
like, it's not even like
unconscious.
I'm drunk and just like
right.
Drunk,
she's conscious.
It doesn't. But at the same time, you're still awake. You're still,
right.
There's no
Yeah.
She's, like,
question
totally
on
out.
if she agreed to it and
Yeah,
then
she
backed
she
out.
100% could not
she
consent
was
to this because
not-
she wasn't even conscious.
Exactly.
Right. Like you can say
Yeah.
he couldn't argue that she was conscious and she said yes. Then she said that can even be an argument because she
couldn't say yes or no because
right.
she was
She
asleep.
drunk.
Right.
Yeah, she was
So
asleep. Right.
There's no question on did this man rape this woman?
And it's so bad that two other guys are emotional about seeing this and what's going on that they can't that they can't talk to the police because they're so upset by what they just saw. So you give this kid 6 months, and then the dad makes the comment about his shit. You're right.
There's consequences to your actions, like no
There
matter
is.
what.
Most of us know, probably most black folks, know some guy that did something stupid, whether they needed some money for their kids or they just thought it'd be a quick way to get some money. They went and sold an ounce of weed, got caught by the police. They're doing 25 years in jail. And I can literally walk into 14 places walking down the block right now in Las
And buy
Vegas
weed.
and buy an ounce of weed. Nobody's going to say anything to me.
Right.
They'd be like, that's $195. sir."
There's a story about there's a show I watched on Netflix and they talk about a guy who he basically had 2 joints, less than $5 worth of marijuana, and I believe it was in 2008 he got caught. He had 2 joints in his back pocket and he ended up being sentenced to 12 years in prison. He wasn't selling this; he was smoking it for himself.
Now,
2 joints
You
Where,
can walk out buy an
Where
ounce.
was that?
in Louisiana. I want to say New Orleans, but I know it was in Louisiana.
There are so many states like now, Nevada being one of them where we live. I can just walk into a store, a dispensary, and buy an ounce of weed. Walk
Yeah.
out. The cop pulls me over. Like, you got any weed on you? Yeah, I got an ounce. He's like, have a good day, sir.
Yep.
I find it extremely weird that we have states like that, like here, California, Washington, and then you have Georgia,
Texas,
you know,
and Louisiana.
and we're supposed to be, the United States, but we are not.
There's nothing.
It's
Yeah,
so it doesn't make any sense.
it doesn't.
Well, and this is the thing. Like, so when you look at this guy, like, it's no question that he was guilty in any way, shape, or form. But all they did was try to poster this guy as he's a great athlete, he's a great person, and literally, he just made one little mistake here, and he gets sentenced to 6 months.
Drunk drivers make one little mistake and they kill people.
Yeah.
That's a lifetime. The reason we're
Like
bringing up Aaron
manslaughter
Persky,
charge.
though, and this Brock Turner thing again, is that Aaron Persky got a job finally after 2 years. He got a job as a girls' junior varsity tennis coach.
Wow.
What the hell?
I think it speaks volumes to the misogyny, because it's like, who hired this guy?
Okay, so like, this is my like. It's like
Exactly.
Let it out.
so like the school was like, hey, he was qualified. We weren't aware of his past. Like,
You did a background check.
like how do you not like
Did
when you background check this guy like he was a judge. Like, is that it? Like, do you ever like why is this guy going from being a judge to being a junior varsity high school girls tennis coach?
Did he not have a job interview?
Yeah.
Because they ask all kinds of questions at a job interview.
Yes.
Like what was your last job? Oh, I was a judge. Okay, you're about to take a huge pay cut.
Why are you not a judge
why,
anymore?
Why are you not a judge? Like, what? And
And
I
then
mean,
why didn't you
Google?
Google?
Yeah.
Like how?
You're hired.
Like, and it wasn't like he moved across the country and he got the job, and they're like, we weren't aware. How? Like, you are educating our children. You are supposed to do background checks. You're supposed to protect them. How do you not know that this is that guy?
Right.
I don't think it was that they didn't know.
Of course not. But they had to say something.
Right.
Yeah.
That's just their cop out because
they
there were
knew,
too many people
and-
that weren't comfortable with it.
Right.
so you have, and I like to just call it the good old boy network,
Right.
which is a lot of these guys. They just look out for each other.
Right.
When you have, whoever hired this guy clearly doesn't care about the students, and he's probably looking at these young girls. And I've had people even say stuff like this to me, which almost got him punched in the mouth, which is, he looks at these high school girls and there's like, man, she's cute. Wait till she gets older, which to me is just a pedophile who hasn't acted yet. Right. So this guy, who clearly has no respect for women's rights, but he puts on a good show. He hasn't done anything, but he's the person in charge of hiring people at a high school. He sees this judge. He knows who this judge is. He knows what happened. They probably gave each other high fives and shook hands about it. Like, oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. I understand. I see what you did there. All right, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I got you, man. I can't give you a job here and here, but you know what? You could teach the women's high school. You need a job just until you get something back on your feet. This thing blows over, you might go being a judge again. Trust me. Like, I've heard these conversations before. So now he's hired. He's working at a high school. And what basically got him fired is people's outrage. It wasn't even like another teacher there had something to say about it.
Yeah, wasn't it?
You know what I mean? Like,
outraged. They were extremely uncomfortable with it.
The whole community was outraged. Like, they were like, whoa.
It took the community to be outraged, not the people who.
And going back to misogyny, they were like, this man is now the girls' tennis coach.
Doing the men's like
if he was the football coach, they might have been like. But now you already told women that they don't mean jack to you anyway.
Pretty much second-class citizens.
Right. And now we're going to let you come in here and teach these second-class citizens. Like, I can't, I don't even, the gall of the school to even act like they didn't know this and to go through this, like they just thought it was going to slide up under the rung and nobody was going to notice, right? Yeah. And then all of a sudden people are like, whoa, hold up.
Yeah.
Excuse me, teacher, why is the rape judge in here?
Yeah.
And why is he not a lawyer? I'm not 100% because not all judges have to be lawyers, but I'm curious to know it's been 2 years and he hasn't got a job, right?
Yeah.
Like there wasn't some law firm,
right?
Even if you're not. Not all judges have to be lawyers or have legal backgrounds, depending on what the state's election process is, or whatever that. But you would think
the fact that he was recalled, though, like what law firm out here is going to be like, yeah, come on, we'll take the press. Who cares?
We see people do this all the time.
Yeah,
we see people get fired. We see football coaches get fired for beating their wives, and some other school goes, come over here and be the third string wide receivers coach until this all blows over.
Yeah.
Like nobody went after this. Like he couldn't get a job.
It's like a paralegal.
Yeah.
Right.
Or a consultant.
Something. Yeah. And that's what I would think. He would go into like consulting. Right. I would think he would have went into like consulting or something, like just having his firm, because he didn't even have to use his name in the consulting. He can hire other people to do it. I mean, it's
another law firm could have just used him and put him on the books over there, and he could have been consulting on a case or giving information.
Right.
But that didn't happen either. So like,
maybe
people don't want this guy around. Right. Like, so all of a sudden now the school was like, hey, come teach these girls.
And here's my thing too. It's not like everybody knows, like high school coaches, high school teachers, it's not like they make a ton of money. It's not like this was a 7-figure job or something. You know what I mean? Like a huge job. There are other jobs I would have been totally fine with him having, like working in a warehouse where he's not dealing with people. You know what I mean? He could go sell cars or something. Like
I think it might call to his personality. I mean, he could be a total narcissist, so he has to be in a position in which he's in control and telling people what to do and how to do it.
It very well could be, yeah, where you don't have someone telling you what to do. He was a judge for Lord knows how many years. So yeah, he was in a position where he was the final authority.
Yeah.
So to go back and to I agree with that 100%. Yeah, it could.
The money, it's
the position. It's the position.
The title.
Could be.
I mean, he still could have done that somewhere else.
Right.
And as a judge, I believe that most judges take payments for whatever under the table. Plus his salary was probably huge. I don't think he's hurting for money. I don't think he took the job for money. But at the same time, I don't think he should be dealing with people in the public. Same thing.
He should not be dealing 100% with children.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
100%. You can't be dealing with children. You can't be trying to shape and mold the minds of our future when this is, we've already seen, especially young women.
If you can,
you've already devalued them with your ruling.
If he can be recalled for making this ruling, and the ruling in sense made is the reason why Brock Turner is now a registered sex offender for life. I believe that him being recalled, they believe that he has done something so wrong that he can't be a judge anymore. I think he should have to register as a sex offender for his role in this.
No,
you see what I'm saying?
Have a problem with that.
I think there's I don't know what you could do as a criminal charge, but I would hope there's some loophole in the system somewhere that he could be charged with something.
That's
The Washington Examiner says expelling Persky from a job that has nothing to do with judiciary sets a dangerous precedent and is scarcely evocative of mob rule. But there are some times when mob rule is due, right? Like,
Yeah.
of course.
and again, if he was in a warehouse working, maybe for FedEx or somebody, nobody would say anything, right?
Right.
But you're asking this man to go and teach young women after you've already told another young woman, Chanel Miller, that her life is basically meaningless and worthless and she's a second-class citizen.
Right.
Yes.
I mean,
You didn't do what your job entails, which is to deliver justice, fair justice. Like the punishment should fit the crime. So if one man rapes a woman and he can get up 25 years for that, how do you justify this man violently raping this woman who's unconscious only getting 6 months? It's not a his word against hers. It's not a the circumstances are kind of fuzzy. We have 2 witnesses plus the victim. I can imagine that since they caught it right when it happened, there's probably DNA evidence. I mean, again, there's no question on if this man did this.
none
He
whatsoever.
did it. And it's there's not even a way to sugarcoat it to make it seem like it's not as bad as it seems, as what him and his dad keep trying to do. So how do you sleep at night knowing that, yeah, there's a woman out there who was raped, and I'm the sole reason that the
She
guy who
didn't get
raped
it.
her is out on the street and she
Yeah.
didn't receive any
Yeah,
kind of justice.
100%.
It's ridiculous.
I just watched Netflix has a new 8-part series called Unbelievable. I didn't realize it was a true story until after I finished watching it, and it's about a young girl who was raped, and 2 male police officers didn't believe her. This guy becomes a serial rapist. The case actually gets picked up by 2 female officers, and they believe their victims. And it becomes a big long case, and they eventually get the guy, they convict him. But it goes what this girl went through and the things she went through in her life because nobody believed her. In fact, the police were so convinced that she wasn't telling the truth and that her story was so outrageous that they prosecuted her for filing a false police report.
Wow.
Hearing stuff like this is just it's so frustrating being a woman and knowing that society pretty much just looks at you as a second-rate citizen. It's just frustrating because it's everywhere. You see it everywhere.
As a black woman,
As a black woman, it's even worse because we are on the absolute bottom of the totem pole.
I can't even say nothing there because it's the truth. Though,
I
right?
wish I could argue with you and be like, well, no, you're right.
You're right.
Like,
No, you were 100% right. And
Bullshit.
it's as a man who has black daughters, that's really hits home and is really heartbreaking for me, right? Because my daughters, so I have one daughter who passes for white, and I have 2 daughters who don't. My daughter who passes for white is going to get so many advantages that my other 2 daughters don't.
yeah.
How do they deal with that?
Oh, that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother 3-part
Okay. Yeah, because I can only imagine. what
depends on
happens.
who's
Yeah.
mad at who at the time.
Right.
No, it can be, and it's weird because it can be ugly between them. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like it's, yeah, that's a whole. when my daughter hears the playback of this, she's gonna go off. She's gonna send me like a 14-page email about this. I love you, boo boo. You brought up earlier about the guy who's like, oh, she's just not old enough yet. Which
Yeah,
brings
yeah.
us to this is not new. So like as a man, right? Like Quan as a man, Steve
I am.
as a man.
Thank
I just wanted to verify that before I said this. So like
2019, you never know.
if you're walking down the street, right?
Right.
And from the back you see a young lady and you're like, wow, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to you walk by her, you see her from the front, and you're like, damn, like, because you just realize that that's not an adult woman.
Yeah.
And my natural instinct is like, I always feel ashamed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Do you feel
I
ashamed because you have daughters?
I feel ashamed because I have
No.
daughters, and I feel ashamed because it's inappropriate.
I feel like
So if you didn't have daughters, do you think that you would?
Oh no, I feel
felt
no,
like
it's 100% inappropriate.
I felt like this before I had daughters.
Right.
And there have been like time, and I tell this to people a lot. Like I have probably over 20 aunts, literally, like in my family, like legit aunts, like my parents' siblings, right?
Right.
And I grew up around a lot of women. I grew up around I have two sisters, an older sister and a younger sister. I have a lot of female cousins. Having that and not having that is just like, having my 3 daughters or not having 3 daughters. I was raised to respect people. And there are certain laws and limits with people. And to me, like he's saying, when I see that, I'm not thinking about my kids or anyone else. I think that as a young person in the youth, you should be able to live your young, youthful life without worrying about things that adults have to worry about. And sex, sexual orientation, anything that involves that is not something for kids.
Sexual orientation?
Like
gender?
No, just the topic in general is what I'm getting at.
I mean that topic
we can
is super broad.
Right. So for me, I'm never going to impose that topic on a young person. Is the point I'm getting at. So for instance, I'm not going to talk to a person who's underage, and to me, underage is like 20. Like if you're 20 or younger, you're too young to be talking to me about this. You know what I mean? Now, granted, legally 18 is the age, so I get it. But if you're younger than that, these are things you need to talk about with your parents, if you're 19, 20 or older, you have a significant other, whatever. A lot of these topics are not for me as an adult man to talk to with a young woman. So if I see a young woman and from a distance or so, whatever, I think she's of age. And of course, like, look, I'm married, but I see women and I say, oh yeah, this woman is beautiful. She looks good. I'm not trying to holler at her. I'm just, I see it. Right. But when I realize like, oh wait, I don't think this girl, I do have this kind of like, whoa, like, what was I do? What just happened? Like, you know what I mean? I almost feel like my visually like violated her or something. You know what I mean? There is a level of shame, like, oh, this girl is too young. For me, I don't understand that pedophile, because that's what it is to me, like mindset of seeing a young girl like that and
having those
those thoughts.
See, like, and it's not because I have daughters. I think I'm more aware of it now because I have daughters, but I've always been aware of it within me. Now that I have daughters, I'm aware of how other people are looking at my daughters.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right.
So I feel ashamed because there are things kids should never be put into issues and subjects before they're ready. And it's not for me to deem when they are and when they are not ready to talk for things like that. But I shouldn't be the one bringing the subject to them.
I agree. And that's kind of what I was trying to get at. Yeah.
I'm actually, you said something here that I have to look at. Gray sent me this thing the other day. So the reason we're talking about this is because we know about Jeffrey Epstein.
Right.
We know about your boy R. Kelly. Now, Felipe Vazquez of the
Pittsburgh
Pirates, he's in jail. He's in jail so much that the judge was like, nah, no bail, bro. Can't help you out here. But Miss Gray sent me something the other day, and this is in 19 states, children under 16 can marry. Over the past 15 years, more than 200,000 minors married in the U.S. And in Tennessee, girls as young as 10 were married in 2001. The state put a minimum age of 17 in 2018. That's last year.
Right.
Wow.
So until last year, 10-year-old kids were getting girls. Let's be honest. Like we're talking about girls.
There's one instance where this 9-year-old girl got pregnant by the deacon of the church.
Well,
went to I guess the bishop. The bishop was like, okay, talk to the parents. Now they have to get married. The parents consented to it. That girl had a kid every year till she was 16. Till she was of legal age
to get herself out of the situation.
To be emancipated. Therefore, she has legal rights over herself to file for a divorce.
I bring up those statistics because this is not something new. Like we're hearing about it now with Jeffrey Epstein. R. Kelly's been doing this apparently for 20-something years.
Right.
Right.
Felipe Vazquez, Vazquez, like this is not new. There are, I don't even like. I can just choke people right now. Like like I don't understand like this. It's just nasty to me, right? That's a
Right.
child. Like, Vasquez was like sending this girl pictures and videos,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how they knew it was him because he's got tattoos that are clearly identifying him in these pictures and videos.
What do you think all this stems from? Because it's not like it's something that's not prevalent.
Yeah, this is like,
I think that's such a broad question because I don't think that there's one thing you can blame and say this is the cause of that. It's one of those things like crime, like what makes people want to rob people? I mean, you could say being broke or whatever, but then you got some people who just they doing it for
they're
the thrill.
sociopathic. And
You know what I mean?
narcissistic
That's
and
just,
they think they can do-
I mean, and there's so many things, but I think part of the reason it keeps going is because our justice system and our laws allow it. This situation you're talking about with this 10-year-old girl, this girl is allowed to be raped every day until she's legally old enough to say, I don't want this to happen to me anymore. And there's nothing she can do about it legally.
Wait, why does she
So-
have to be? Like, this blows my mind though, too, to the point where she's legally old enough to say, "I don't want this to
Right.
happen to me." Why can't she just say right now, "I am 10
Exactly.
years
Because
old.
she's not
I-
of age.
I
Isn't
do
that
not
wild?
want this to happen to me. I do not want this man touching me like this."
Because when she's 16, she can say that, and if he does it, it's rape. My wife in her 30s, I'm in my 30s. If I touch my wife and she says no, and I continue to do this, she can call the police and say, my husband is attempting to rape me, or he is raping me, or
But
he raped me.
And then you get the thing of depending on which police officer comes to the house.
Of course.
And that's the problem. We don't take these allegations seriously. And I understand that.
I think it's a cultural thing.
It's definitely cultural.
Well,
I think-
I wanted. That's where I'm going. Was going with my conversation. But there was a time a long time ago where marriages were arranged things. Right. Marriage was never about love. Marriage was about.
Right.
It was a business transaction. Right.
Right.
I'm going to marry my son to your daughter, and we're going to split this 10 acres of land, and you're going to give me 4 goats, and I'm going to give you 3 sheep, and blah, blah, blah,
Correct.
blah,
Right,
blah.
right.
I know my son is this age, and your daughter's my son is 16, your daughter is 10, but we're going to make this happen, and then they get married, and right?
Right.
There's a part of that in this, and I understand in certain cultures that some of this still goes on,
Right.
and there's a part of me that's, as much as I don't agree with it or like it, that it's hard for me to tell people over there how to live their lives and what's wrong with their culture when we have so much going on wrong with our culture in America.
Right.
This should not be a part of American culture.
No.
We were not.
Would we not agree that a big majority of American culture, even though it shouldn't be, is religious based?
Yes.
So if we go by those standards, that's pretty much what marriage is.
So look,
And that's
and-
what happened
and this is
in the good book.
And this is what I
Right,
was about to
so-
say is a lot of that though is taken so far out of context and people don't understand why those things happen. So back when there was only 5,000 people on earth, they needed to populate. And here's why, because people had enemies. So you have one group over here, they're 3,000 strong. You have another group over here, they're 4,000 strong. Well, when they come up with their army of 2,000 people, which is basically all of their men, we only got 1,500 men. By numbers, they're going to wipe us out. We need to start having babies. So men had multiple wives. They had many arranged marriages, and it was to populate the earth. That was part of that transaction. Now, fast forward 2,000 years later, we got no problems with population.
Actually,
We
our
got-
problem is the
understand?
opposite. We're overpopulated.
Our problem is exactly, it's the opposite now. But, and just to make it quick and not spend an hour explaining like why these things happen and why they're in the Bible, that's in a nutshell, it was part of creating a population where you even have a lot of cases of incest, and which we think now is disgusting and horrific, and diseases. Back then, it was just what you did. There was nobody else around except your third cousin, so y'all had
Or
babies.
that was also what you
Right.
did to keep particular power line in your family.
That also,
Right,
right? So,
right.
and that's what I'm saying. Like
Very
there was
normal
there
thing.
was there were reasons back then. Some you can agree with, some you won't. They're worth arguing about.
The
But
normalcy, I think, changes over time.
Right, because those reasons don't exist anymore.
exactly.
So, therefore, morals are very subjective, right? I mean,
I think in a
given
sense,
time frame.
given a time frame, yes, some morals, some things do not make sense. Like in certain time frames, something might have been acceptable. And then you look like we're talking about incest. Back then, it might have been acceptable because of the situation and
Correct.
things that were happening. Now it is unacceptable. Like, look, there's 7 billion people on this planet and counting. You should
But-
be able to find somebody who ain't your sister.
Do we believe that it's unacceptable because of the repercussions genetically?
I just believe
I think there's
Right?
some people
'Cause,
who
I mean,
do,
like,
but
who?
I think it's just unacceptable. To me, it's unacceptable. Period. It's just
but there are still cultures that do this.
there. Yeah,
I mean,
there are
there's
still-
cultures in the middle of America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So
when
you know what I mean? Like,
we all know who Tyson Fury is.
Yeah.
The boxer.
Yeah.
Heavyweight champion of the world. You're
I
not a
don't know.
boxer
I'm
fan.
not, yeah, I'm not-
He's a heavyweight champion of the world. He is a gypsy.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate, for lack of a better term, inbreeding.
Gypsy. So is he like from Romania? Like, what do we mean?
Well, they're traveling gypsies of Europe. Yes.
Got
Yeah.
it.
So like yes. So like inbreeding is much more of a thing in that community. They stay within that community. This is 2019. That still happens.
Right.
Right.
When I first moved to Georgia in 1996, there was this group of people. Like, I had a job as a waiter in a restaurant, and there's this group of people that came in, and I didn't even know this existed in America.
Mm-hmm.
And they would come in, and they all looked alike, like every single member of the family. And there were, I mean, like they were almost like twins. Like,
Yeah.
it was honestly creepy to
Yeah.
me, right? And I asked some, I kind of made a joke to another waiter one day. I was like, they got some strong genetics. And he laughed at me and he's like, those are the gypsies. I was like, what
They
do you
got
mean?
the same genetics.
Yes.
Right.
So this is still, like you said, it's a pocket culture in America that this still happens.
Right.
So do we excuse it
So
because it is their culture? But then we have guys like Felipe Vazquez. I don't know. He's Dominican. Like, I don't, of the Dominican people I know, like, I don't know of any of this in their culture.
So here, this is my ultimate take on it is, you know, I don't really care what your culture is. There's a thing called right and wrong, and we are in 2019, and you might believe that pigs can fly. You might believe that, you know, there is no God. We are all descendants of aliens, just like in the movies. I mean, I really don't
Tom
care.
Cruise.
So at some point, we get down to what you did, which is basically molest a child. And I have a problem with that. And I don't always, look, everybody who knows me, I'd say what I got to say, right? However, there's sometimes I don't know what the words are. I don't know how to explain exactly why this is morally unacceptable. I don't know how to explain exactly where the line should be. Should it be at 16? Should it be at 22? I don't really know.
right.
And I want to know who decided this, though.
But-
Like, right? Who did, like, what lawmakers were like? Obviously, some of these laws have been on the books for a very, very long
Right.
time. Like, when they first came to America and they were doing the arranged marriages still here in this country in the 1800s and 1700s, like, we've gotten to the point where we've learned a history that some things were bad, right? Like,
Right.
we realized that Columbus wasn't a hero, right?
Right.
So why haven't we realized that some of these other things that we allowed in our culture are no longer acceptable just because they're on the history books or because they're in the we haven't changed the law yet.
Right,
Why does it
right,
take
right.
till 2018 for the state of Tennessee to say, wait a minute, a 10-year-old cannot decide to be married?
I think it's I'm not saying that it's right or it's wrong. I'm more so looking at like the core reasons behind things.
But-
I think it's
Right.
because it's been so indoctrinated into a way of thinking that you're not even that conscious of what's going on. The reason why women got married so young is because they're fertile, right?
Right.
So that just becomes slightly brainwashed into a particular culture.
But
So
haven't we realized, though, that, like, Americans have been I say Americans, especially because I've been reading a lot of Grant Cardone books, listening to him a lot of life, that we've just been brainwashed completely our entire lives. Like we've been told
Well, yes.
you have to go to college and get an education to be
Right.
successful.
Right.
We know that's BS, right? We know plenty
Right.
of people who are very successful, have their own companies, very entrepreneurial, that didn't go to college.
But you have a whole generation, that doesn't, for lack of better words, are uneducated or are not worldly educated. You know what I mean?
I think that's a better word because like there's different types of education, right? Like I tell my oldest son all the time that if the apocalypse was to come,
Uncultured.
Yeah.
if the apocalypse was to come, that he needs to stay with his sister because for as book smart as he is, he can't survive without her on the streets because she's the one with all the street smarts. Like,
Right.
like he has like if there's the end of the world, he needs to be with her because he won't survive. He's gonna get eaten by the zombies.
So
Like,
look at the state of America. We are what, 400 years old?
Yep.
America is a very young country compared to the rest of the world. On top of it being young, here's the jinx of America. You can fly 6 hours from California to New York, not need a passport, speak the exact same language. Everybody from any part of the country understands the language. Even though dialects are different, you can go to the backwoods in New Orleans and you'll have a tough time understanding what they're saying, but you'll get it. You know what I mean? Like you'll find your way out of there. You can have a conversation, even if you're from like Montana, so to say, right? There's no other place in the world you can fly for 6 hours and end up in the same country and not need a passport, speaking the same language. It's very tough, right? So with that, there are people.
I can
now
see
think about
Gray.
it.
She's trying to
thinking
figure out
about
like
it.
what country can I fly from one in 6 hours and be in the
I
same
mean,
country?
there might be one or two,
I'm
but
pretty
I'm
sure
saying
there
like
is.
there's not a lot is my point. So as far as America goes, even in that we have pockets.
Yep.
I know people, me being from St. Louis, who have never left St. Louis. They've never. I mean, other than like the surrounding 100 miles of metropolitan area right outside of St. Louis, the rural areas, they've never left.
Right.
I know people in even a smaller circle. Alton, Illinois is a small town outside of St. Louis. It's in Illinois. It's about 15 minutes away from St. Louis, right? I know people, I even have family that have never left there. Only been to St. Louis once or twice, a 15-minute drive, right? So when you have people like that and they've been told something or taught something and their group of people around them have been told and taught the same thing, the only thing that they have to contradict that is what they heard or saw on the internet or on TV. They don't have that culture. They've never gone to a Las Vegas
Culture of
where-
truth seeking. Like
Yeah, either anything, like just anything outside of what they've been taught their whole life. That's the truth to them. That's the reality to them. I've had people tell me when I go back home, like, man, I heard they got slot machines and bathrooms out there. Like, and they 100% believe that. And I'm here's the thing. Like you're talking about truth seeking. I'm the truth seeker for them. They come to me to find out, are there really slot machines and bathrooms
Right,
out there?
right.
Because they believe that because somebody told them, oh, Vegas is Sin City. If you go out there, it ain't nothing but the devil's land and this and this and that. And then when I go back and I'm like, man, is Sin City is literally just one street. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like it's a bunch of casinos on one street. And there's
It's 2
another
miles
street.
long, right?
Yeah, and there's another street downtown. And you know what I mean? Like that's it. No, there are not slot machines and bathrooms. That's disgusting. You know what I mean? And so, but then they still live there, right? So when you talk about things being ingrained, you're talking about people who don't know that they're wrong. They don't know that this is not the truth. They don't know that they need to seek another truth because grandma told them, mama told them, and now they know it and they're telling
so
their
we're
kids.
assuming
No,
that
that's-
that like
that's-
Vasquez and these guys don't know that this is wrong because this is the way they were brought up.
Yeah,
the Epstein
I kinda-
Island people, they gotta know this is wrong, right? Because if you didn't know it was wrong, you wouldn't have went to an island and do it somewhere. You'd have done it in your apartment in Manhattan.
Right. They know
Right.
it. They know it's wrong.
I know.
But
Why is it becoming more? Why are we seeing more of it though? Like, why is it becoming more prevalent?
because
I
we
don't
have
think
social
that
media.
Thank you. I don't think that it's something that's just necessarily become more prevalent. More people are more aware of it
Right.
because we have so many outlets to inform the masses.
You have to understand, up until 20 years ago, most people didn't have the internet.
Right.
In the 90s, I remember logging in AOL and you waiting for it to, yeah, right? You waiting on it to dial up. You click on the website and you waiting 5 minutes for it to load.
And
Meanwhile,
your mom
you being
would get
charged.
mad because it was $9.95
Get off the
an
internet, I'm waiting
hour.
for a call.
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
You know what I mean? 5 cents a minute or whatever it was you were paying to be on the internet. So we have literally only in like maybe the past 10 years been able to say, like, you know what, we all have free access to things all over the world.
Think about this. The iPhone is only 8 years old.
Yes.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah,
Think about
only
it.
8
So
years
think
old.
about the people,
Yeah.
you know.
Like my kids have, like when I tell them things, and it's weird because your parents would tell you stories when you were growing up. Like my kids do not believe me when I say that like I didn't have the internet until I was in college.
Right.
It didn't exist.
Right.
There was like, and if it did, it wasn't, the masses didn't have it.
And-
The military had it. Like,
Now, here's what's even more crazier. The iPhone is 8 years old. If you go 8 years past that and you showed somebody an iPhone, you couldn't even explain it to anybody. Nobody would understand it.
well, yeah.
It wouldn't make sense. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. It's not even possible.
It's funny because like, you ever watch The Wire?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, I didn't watch The Wire until 2 years ago, and people were telling me what a great show The Wire was.
Yeah.
And to me, it wasn't that great a show. But part of the reason it wasn't that great for me because The Wire started in like 2005.
Right.
So the technology in The Wire is
It's
so
old.
Right.
outdated.
So it's hard to be like,
Right. There's at one point where they put a tracker on a car. It's
Yeah.
the size of a large iPad. And I was like, how the hell did they not know that was on the car? But like, and nowadays, you can get a tracker that's, like the size
Yeah.
of your thumb or, but like
Right.
technology and just, it's a short amount of time. It's crazy. I want to touch on this before we get out of here. Because I know Miss Gray has lots of feelings about this. Fantasia. Have you guys ever seen her in concert? She's amazing, by the way.
I've heard.
she has great talent.
She is amazing in concert.
Yeah, I haven't
Extremely
seen her, but
talented.
I've heard she's amazing.
I
I haven't seen her in concert, but
I went to
seen
a
her.
music festival and she was one of the acts. I didn't go to see her, but then I ended up seeing her and she was absolutely amazing. She got so much talent. Obviously, she won America's American Idol.
Yeah.
But so she made a comment this week that women should be submissive to men. She made the comment that women are so busy out there trying to be everything that when a good man comes into their life, they end up losing the good man. I'll let you start, Ms. Gray.
that takes me to the whole, unfortunately, misogynistic outlook on things. Like you have, like she even made a comment where I think it's a horrible analogy, but you can make any horrible analogy fit if you're that convincing, where she said the man is the head and the woman is the neck, and that men should be the head of the household and the leader.
But you can't the head doesn't make a move without the neck.
Yeah,
That's what
whatever. Okay. That to me just seems a little bit ridiculous. I think personally, to be a leader, those are particular characteristics that people have. And I don't think that it's based on gender. So to just have one person be a leader, so that means all men are leaders. No woman should be a leader. That to me sounds a little bit ridiculous. I don't understand why two people can't be a head of a household and actually be a partnership. I think that's
But see, and this is bad because like I knew you and I touched on this a couple days ago, and you didn't tell me where you're going, but I kind of had a sense of how you felt about this. And here's the problem: I think her sentiment was right. I think the words that she used, because she used the word submissive, and I think that was wrong. However, I've been literally thinking about this for 2 days, and I can't find a way to say how I believe she's right without it sounding offensive.
okay.
I
Does that make
understand
sense?
yeah.
Like I think she's right. I think that she's right in the sense that she made it very clear. She feels like it's a generational thing where women, and Basic Trina, who's also a guest on our show, her and I had this conversation yesterday, where she's like, as a young woman, she's taught that you have to be strong. You don't need a man for this. You don't need anybody for this. You do this on your own. This is you can do all this on your own. The problem is, and again, I don't know how to say this without.
It's extremes. Every extreme is wrong.
Right. And it's like, so when you come out with the attitude that I don't need a man, it's almost offensive to men, right? And it's not like we want to be needed, but you want to be
Everybody
a
wants
part.
to be needed,
Right.
To be a part of
Right.
something.
So when, as a man, I hate this when women say you're intimidated by me. It's not that men are intimidated by you. It's that I
They don't
feel
see where they fit.
fit.
Yeah. No,
And when you don't feel like you fit,
Yeah.
what's the
point?
point?
Right.
If I'm a round hole, a round peg, and you're a square hole, what's the point?
No,
you
I totally
are in a
understand.
relationship. You are in a relationship. There are things that your man does, and I'm sure there are things that your wife does that just drive you absolutely insane. But at some point in your relationship, you're like, I'm not letting that bother me anymore because it's not going to change them.
Right.
But you have to get to that point in the relationship. If from the very beginning of the relationship, you're not allowed, you come in with the automatic, I don't need this. You put up that wall, it's never going to come together.
Right. Yeah.
So
No, I totally agree. I think it's extremes. Every extreme is just not right. But I think what she's saying is an extreme that doesn't make any sense.
I think when you put it in an absolute term, then most things can be taken as wrong. So if it's just like if you say, well, black people love chicken and watermelon, like, well, most people love chicken and watermelon because those two things are delicious.
Right.
So if at some point, but to say that all black people love it, because there are plenty of black people who even I know who don't eat chicken,
right,
or they don't like watermelon, and some don't like both, right? So I look at it like this, like a lot of these things, like you mentioned earlier, they do come from the Bible, right? But here is something else that's in the Bible, and you also have to understand that the Bible took place thousands of years ago. So here's the other thing, like the Bible talks about being equally yoked, right? So if she has that mentality, she has to be with someone who also has that mentality, right? So when the Bible says be equally yoked, it's not talking about eggs. It's talking about when they would plow the field, they put a yoke on the animal. The yoke was how they held the animal and guided it, right? So if you had two animals, some people would plow the field with the donkey or a horse or something like that. Some people would use an ox. What it's saying is use two of the same animal. If you're going to use an ox, use two oxes. If you're going to use a donkey, use two donkeys. Don't use a donkey and an ox because they will be unequally yoked. That yoke that goes around their necks will damage one of them. They will be hurt because it's not working. So if you are a woman who believes that you should be submissive to a man, then you have to get with a man who is a leader and will give you reason to be submissive, who will allow that. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
I always believe that, look, here's my marriage advice. You got to do what works. Okay? If this is not 60 years ago where the husband made enough money that the wife didn't need a job. We live in 2019. The cost of living is just too high. The wages are not high enough for us to live in that same type of style. So it's not about who the breadwinner is. But back then it was the man. The man had to be the leader.
That's
he had
because
to make
they
all the
wouldn't let
decisions,
women.
right? They wouldn't let women, right?
Yeah.
So now looking at it, like, you have to do what works. Should the man be the leader? Somebody has to be the leader. In your house, if you're a woman and being a leader works, go for it. Whatever's gonna keep y'all together. You understand what I'm saying? Like, we take too much into like, oh, was she right? Was she wrong? Well, for her and her experience, she's probably 100% right.
Yeah, but she's trying to make it seem like she literally said that's why y'all women can't find a husband.
But I think, I think it was more because she was saying that you put up an attitude
right
that turns men off because you try to do too much.
You're trying to take his
Right.
job.
Yeah,
in a
right.
Then
sense.
they
Yeah.
also had another thing where her husband came on and tried
to.
Yeah.
and that just
But again, that
touched on
works
the
for them.
misogyny of it.
Right.
Yeah, and you can't argue on social media
Right.
anyway.
Before we
like,
get out of
it's
here,
so silly. Yeah.
There's a movie once called Soul Food, one of my favorite movies of all time. There's a line in there where Big Mama tells one of the daughters, sometimes you need to let a man be a man. And that is like, and it also goes the other way, sometimes you need to let a woman be a woman.
Right.
I am Dallas Scott. That is Hollywood Huff, Miss Gray. Thank you guys for joining us on Negro Please. We will be back next week with a lot of stuff to talk about. It's too much stuff out there.
Word.